Hello, listeners, and welcome to this, the 34th episode of the Heresy Accountability Buddies podcast. I'm Jacob, and this episode I'm joined by...
Dan.
Duncan.
Jack? Son of a gun.
I couldn't remember where I go.
And
John.
Lucas.
And Jamie.
We're glad to have everybody with us, even if we're not all here together ourselves. We've got a
Have
lot to talk about.
we ever been all together?
No.
I think Jamie has ensured that we've never been, so maybe on any episode without him. We've got a lot to talk about this episode, not the least of which is the reason for our special guest Lucas joining us. Going to talk a little bit about Adepticon plans and things like that. But obviously, before we get there, we know we've got some hobby taxes to pay. So, gentlemen, what have we been up to?
I've been psychotically painting as fast as humanly possible. We're coming up on a very short number of days to Adepticon. I'm just under a month out. And I still have a bunch of stuff to... I managed to get down all the spot colors on the radar dishes and Frontieris conning towers, and then I got the spot colors down on some of the hab buildings, and I'm working on the double wide hab buildings tonight while we're podcasting. But then I've made a to-do list before, so I can kind of keep track of everything to do. I still have to build a junkyard roof. I still have to build a junkyard base. That junkyard then also to be decaled. It's been sprayed and primed. And then I'll have to do spot towers on... I still have the bar to do spot towers on, 2 cranes, the junkyard itself. I have a bunch of little small vendor things I do still. The hab bases themselves, spot colors, and then the chop shop and cargo 8 kind of diorama bases, spot colors.
So since you're building a junkyard with all your NPC... Since you're building a junkyard with all your NPC models, do you have a junkyard dog to go with that?
I do. He's in the colors, he's in the little things to be colored.
Nice.
And then Chris in the main chat was nice enough to give me some Age of Sigmar bones from one of the Warpath game. And so I built those and then threw them into a tub, and I'll be doing that out while we're podcasting, so I'll be on mute a little bit while I look for those. I need to find those, I need to base them, and then I need to obviously paint them up. And then I have what I call a broken hab. It's one of the 1 square habs was not fitting together correctly, so I said screw it, and I only glued it kind of partially together and then hit it with a hammer. And so that's a broken hab, and it needs to get glued together. I've been painting it up like a normal hab, so it'll look okay when it's all weathered up. And then once all those are done, that's base colors. Then I need to gloss and wash everything, and then I need to obviously texture whatever bases are there. Less than a month, I think I'm on track for that. Luckily, Lucas and some of the other local guys are going to come over next weekend to help me out and do some of the stuff. I'm going to try to get everything at least to the oil wash stage, so we can quickly oil wash and wipe down and then seal and call it a day for those. And I'm also sorting out a whole bunch of terrain for those guys to be able to build. If they don't want to work on painting things, they just build little bases full of scattered terrain and hills and things like that. So I want to make sure that there's no end to the possibilities of work that I can enslave people to do. That's hopefully everything I can get done. The other thing I tried to do this weekend was I tried to go to the Citadel for End and the Death, or whatever it was called, the new superbook for the Solar War, and I slept through all of my alarms because apparently do not disturb means do not run alarms either on Apple. And so one of my alarms went off at 5 a.m. because I usually try to get to the store a few hours before they open. And when I finally got to the store, I was going to be about 6th or 7th in line, and I knew they were only going to get 2 or 3 books. And so I just decided to drive on. One of our friends went there, and he claims that they had 7 books, but when I got to the store, they claimed that. Either way, that was my sad weekend, painting weekend. I have been catching up a lot on some anime that I've been meaning to watch. So burning back through I watched all the Gundam, original 1970s Gundam. I've watched 0083. I've watched 080. I'm currently working on Zeta, and then I've got Legend of the Galactic Heroes, the new dubbing to watch now. Actually really good if you guys like political intrigue and stuff like that, but also set it on a space opera. Legend of the Galactic Heroes.
I've got the full set of Wing and the Endless Waltz.
I'm good. Wing was a little not smart. It's just basically a 5-year-old's understanding of peace.
Yep.
Repeated every 30 minutes. Endless Waltzes was beautifully animated though, so
just gorgeous.
Yeah, so that's That's
Yeah.
been me. No gaming in. I do need to build the list. I'm going to go to Adepticon and plan how to get there with Lucas. But those are things that we're going to come up with in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, here I was just about to pick your brain and just be like, as somebody who I think I've only seen Wing and Seed all the way through, where would you suggest going? But it sounds like you were a step ahead of me there.
Yeah.
So
So if you're looking at Gundam, you don't necessarily have to start with the original series. The Thunderbolt movies were both really good, and so that Gundam's a little weird. So you know that there's all the different offshoot series and things like that that don't necessarily interact
yeah,
with the timeline.
it's more of an anthology or a top level universe rather than it is continuous storytelling. I know
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
original Gundam has a sequel and so does Seed, but otherwise direct sequels outside of like an OVA or a movie are pretty rare.
Yeah, so the double O and those are numbered. They go within it, and there's a couple other movies that are within that Universal Century that all kind of tie together. But they even tried to do a Universal Century retelling through Gundam Origin and Gundam Thunderbolt. So if you want to kind of get an idea of what started the 1 Year War, Origin is really good for that, and it's kind of good for people that are just getting in. Thunderbolt is also really good for people that are kind of getting in. It probably has some of the better animated fight scenes. It's got a little bit of CG in it, but it's not like and it has some of the only first person like in the cockpit view, things like that. But if I'm just looking to like introduce people to it, I usually try to go with 08th MS Team or 0080. 08th MS Team is like Vietnam but with Gundams, and so there's a lot of like jungle fighting and subterfuge. It's Gundam, so there's always war crimes. And then 0080 is a really personal story, completely away from the war, of people trying to live out in a world of giant robots that could possibly blow up your entire school if they miss. And so how that affects children in the war, and how that affects a couple that end up finding themselves on other opposite sides of the war when they're both secret agents. It's like a really heartfelt story and ends terribly, which is war. So.
Yeah, I think BattleTech would be right up there with Gundam in terms of like you're not following the plot if there's no war crimes happening.
Very much true.
So I also wanted to pick your brain on the end and the death. I know we just got part 1 of that. We don't, to my knowledge, have a date on part 2 of that. But I did want to just like ask or figure, do you think we will get our first Heresy campaign supplement before we get the end and the death part 2?
Yes.
I hope so. My honest hope, I honestly think, and we can kind of talk about this later as we go into Adepticon stuff. I honestly hope that we're going to get at least the announcement of books at Adepticon.
Yeah, that's
Oh, I
Adepticon
agree.
seems to be the heresy-friendly con for them, and so they seem to like hold heresy announcements to that. And I'm not going to hold punches when it comes to Adepticon on like, hey, where's a militia PDF and a demons PDF? I'm really getting tired of the blanket like, oh, we will take this feedback into account and to announce it when it comes available, that we get every time on the Facebook posts and things like that. And I appreciate everybody asking where they are every time they post something. Obviously don't attack the poor guy that's trying to run the social media page, but they do need to understand that we care, and that you do that by constantly asking them questions. It may seem silly, it may seem annoying, but that's the only way that they're even going to know that we care.
Yeah, I'll definitely agree. If we go all of Adepticon without a book announcement, while I agree with you, I would prefer to see Solar Ox and Liber Demonica, or whatever they end up calling it. If we don't get at least a campaign supplement, I think people will rightly be quite cross that we will have made it close to a year. Actually, it would be a year after the initial Heresy announcement, if I'm right. And we would still be failing to expand the setting, let alone to complete it relative to its state from last edition.
Yeah. Well, that's everything I've been working. I'll pass it on to Duncan, who's furiously cleaning.
I'm actually not cleaning. I'm currently preparing to apply bright white to ivory white to a apothecary's tabard.
Who's Ivory White? I know I just picked up Pro Acryl's Bright Titanium White because I've heard so many people just rant and rave about it.
Pro Acryl.
Yep, there we go.
I've got 3 different whites from them. I've got the bold titanium white, a bright ivory, and one that I just picked up that I don't remember the name of or have in front of me.
So you got me into Procryl, and honestly, I've been using them for pretty much everything that's associated with the desert tables, and I've really loved every paint that I've touched, apart from their.
It's
I have no experience with their yellow yet, so I can't really speak to that.
It is so thin, and so I'm just putting 2 coats down, and it's still coming out streaky. And so I'm like, whatever, it's desert terrain. It's going to get a bunch of weathering, and maybe I'll sponge some crap on top. So
Makes
whatever.
sense. But yeah, I'm a huge fan of the Pro Curl stuff. I'm really liking it straight out of the bottle, thinned or not,
Yep.
depending on the medium I'm applying it through. But let's see, what have I actually gotten done this week? Not a lot. I'm currently working still on those same Sons of Horus that I've got to have done for Adepticon. Apparently, I now also need to have 2 more Sons of Horus characters done for Adepticon. Won't be a problem once I get them. I'm getting those done for Lucas. I did have a game yesterday. The Kentucky 30K group had a small get together. Only 4 people showed up. But we did have some games. I had a chance to play my buddy Keith, who actually runs Kentucky 30K, and he and I played. I played Traitor Sons of Horus. He played Loyalist Sons of Horus, and it was a good game. He plays his and stuff very differently than mine. He's got a good-looking army. It was a fun game. He had 1 more dread than I did, and it did not matter because dreads are only really good if they're able to spank things that they need to spank, and when you intercept them and feed them another dread to fight, it becomes a problem, and you have mutual dread annihilation, which is the entire purpose of a dreadnought, I think. Other than that, I've picked up a few more bits and bobs of stuff to try to get to work for after I get done with these, to work on my buddy Corin's Alpha Legion. And I've started picking up miscellaneous bits and bobs and stuff for the 2 different World Eater lists that I'm currently planning on. And in keeping with that, I ordered, I think it was 50 jump packs, something ridiculous, of the Max Mini jump packs that I order that I like. So that's going to be all kinds of fun eventually. And if it isn't, well, that's my fault. But that's about all that I've got done. Oh, and I finished the our new Heresy novel. Yes, the End of the Death. I have thoughts on it. I have thoughts on a lot of stuff about it, including that I'm thinking I'm not really a fan of Dan Abnett anymore. I used to think he was probably the best of their writers, and now I'm thinking that he's having memory issues, including when it comes to who's dead and who's not. But that's okay. I can get over that. So at this point, I'll go ahead and say that's all I got, folks. And I'll go ahead and tag Jack to go next.
Hey, hello, everybody. See here. I went
You
to
got
Vegas.
2 weeks.
Yeah, I went to Vegas for a week. So I visited some hobby shops. Thought about buying some stuff. Decided against it because I was flying. And then I've been working on repainting my what's that thing called? A big gun. It's like a little A10, but it's a Space Marines
Xiphon?
Fire Raptor. Fire Raptor.
Oh, Fire Raptor. Okay.
One of those things. Repainting the first composite Forge World kit that I did years ago, because I really never want to put together one ever. And I smoked a brisket, and I worked a lot. So yeah, Jamie, I'm tagging you in because I got nothing, man. I got nothing. I missed you all. I missed you all. I miss Dan. I miss Jamie. There's Duncan. Hey, I miss John. Jacob. I miss Jacob. Lucas. I miss Lucas.
We
Love you too, buddy.
we missed your Caddyshack Gopher Dance last week. I was just a little depressed. So this week, per normal, like my life is normal crap show. But I actually have been working on stuff when I can, just through lack of sleep. I've been painting some stuff, same stuff, still working on those inner circle guys because they're so detailed. I fixed my 3D printer because there's a rookie error. I punctured the FDE membrane in the bottom of the tank accidentally and it leaked, so I had to get a new one of those. I got a new tank, and then so I have 2 tanks now in case I have another problem, and then I replaced the actual membrane on the first tank, which, by the way, there's like 40 some odd screws on the bottom between the tank and the layers that hold that membrane. So it took like forever to change out. What else did I do? Got some of the first stuff in for Toys for Tots donations for the new armies. We got a ton of Mark IV and Mark III, like original Mark IV and Mark III Forge World kits, brand new, unused, and some jet bikes, too. So that'll go really well with the white scars. What else? Oh yeah, I was able to finally score a Soul Shackle Kill Team box. One of my friendly local game stores ordered as many as they could with the allotment system, and somebody didn't pick theirs up, and they called me and ran over there as quickly as I could after picking up the kids from daycare and grabbed it. The box was a little damaged, but I don't care because all I wanted is the terrain, and I wanted the Arbites and the Bestest Boy in it. So I'm happy about that. It was a win, let's call it that. So has Dan gone yet?
I have not. So my hobby has been very minimal, except my son and I got to go to a local narrative gaming day here in Chicago. It's not my local game store, but a store down in Chicago, kind of where I work. The Dice Dojo. They had 12 people signed up. First game only had 11, but then had 12 for the rest of the day. It was very cool. They played it was an attrition event. So they played a little different than what we're running at Adepticon. Similar concept, right? You hire and work your way down in points. It was 2,500. 1,500 using the Praetorian rules from the Panoptica or whatever rule set. No other rules from that. It was standard rules, but they used that rule set. And then 1,000-point ZM. They have ZM, like terrain heavy, make ZM out of a normal table. Let's see. 2,500 points. I brought my Ultramarines. First game I played Dark Angels. He was playing Traders just to make things even. Started out, it was night fight, went kill points, went back and forth a couple times. And then he popped my Land Raider with my command squad in it and had what are they called?
Interrupters.
And their plasma
flamethrowers
are no joke. I ended up with because I was popped out of a Land Raider right in front of them with 45 invulnerable saves and 3 invulnerable instant death saves. So needless to say, my command squad was wiped out in one shooting phase. That went poorly, and the rest of the game I was just fighting from behind with kill points, and one of my big impact units never made an impact, so I lost that. Second round was quarter zone control, 1,500 points. That one, so the Praetorian rules limit toughness 7 and toughness 8 wound models. You get one toughness 7 per 125 points, and then toughness 8 counts double, so really limited. You actually at 1,500 points you can't take a lot. You can take connectors and Drado. But so that game played Alpha Legion, really cool guy. His army is really painted nice, weathered up nice. He won the favorite army vote at the end of the day. But he left his Contemptor in the middle of the table, close enough where I was able to hit him with Taurus. And I know 5 Fulmintaris, it is a little above average to take out a Contemptor turn of shooting, but did from there. Was able to move into him with my Contemptor and the rest of my units and wipe out enough important stuff that I ended up with board control on that one. I will say he was running Headhunter squads, 2 5-man Headhunter squads that moved up on the board before it started, and they had a multi, and he was using it to swipe my Praetor and my master are gone like right away, which is a nasty kind of trick actually. And then the third game was Zone Mortalis. I ended up losing that. He Fender, and so he got to place the tokens, the objectives to control, and I really was winning the battle, but I couldn't get to the objectives because I was able to camp on before I could get to them. But overall, it was a really good time. My kid played the Word Bears drop pod list. He actually mishapped the first game, so his opponent got to place all the pods but the first one. But he was able to win that game anyway. I think he lost the middle game, and then he like a 9-10 man Gal Vorback and Zone Mortalis, which is probably when I didn't really pay attention to this. And he like wiped the board with in the Zone Mortalis, the Gal Vorback.
In the meanwhile, yeah, there's fun with Alpha Legion shenanigans, especially with shooting out characters this edition.
Yeah, I figured Exodus would kind of rise to the top in that role, unsurprisingly.
Yeah.
Not really shocked on that one at all.
Yeah. But was there something else that that was there beyond using Exodus, or?
Don't know. Let's see what Dan says.
I'm back.
Okay.
Am I still
Welcome
studying?
back. Not yet, but we'll keep you posted.
Okay. Well, I was about done. Anyway, I did also put my list together what I'm playing at Adepticon for the grudge match. So got a few conversions and things to do up for that list. So I'm actually got my Ultramarines out and I'm working on some modeling, doing some Thunderhammer, Terminators, and a couple other things. So anyway, was there a question while I was gone?
Alpha Legion shooting HQ commander type shenanigans.
Yeah. What about it?
So that happened to you from what squads?
It was. I thought he said Headhunter squad. Headhunter.
Yeah, because they have precision 4+, and then they can bring the multi-melta.
Yeah. So, and they had scouted up, right? So they were, even with Night Fight, they were close enough to be able to get the shots off. And, you don't worry about Melta roll with characters because you just need the toughness and or the strength and the armor pin, right? Or, yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
So he had 2 at 1500. And like I said, my Praetor or Delegatus and Master Signals were both gone turn 1. But that's all I got.
You out of your tank, you said?
So that was in the Praetor game, or the Praetor. Yeah. The
stuff like that gets stronger there.
Yeah. So yeah, that was infantry only, right? So the rules are I'm sorry, it's not only our toughness 7 and 8 limited, but it's no vehicles whatsoever. Anything with a vehicle subtype doesn't count. So you're walking across the board. So I will say that I see why Fomentarus are nasty. I played the Locatarus in the Zone Mortalis game, and they did some work, which was nice. And Contemptor with the carries and a fist is still definitely does some work against infantry. I was happy with what I did with my Contemptor in all games, even the one I lost the first game. It went well. So who hasn't gone? Jacob, I think maybe you haven't.
Yeah,
And Lucas.
And then, is there anybody else besides Lucas and I?
I think that's it.
Yeah. So, hobby time this week has unfortunately been relegated to home projects. Finally got a contractor lined up to put a new roof on the house, another lined up to put a new door on the garage. And just trying to keep moving with that. Fiance and I got my PC desk, moved out of my room and kind of out into the open so that we can prepare for getting the master suite completely evacuated, so that we can make sure we do work in there to repair the damage to the ceiling once we get a new roof on the place. So
Sounds good.
yeah, but regrettably, that's kind of been the extent of the hobby progress. What's our news and announcement?
Okay, so this week for Heresy Thursday, we got the announcement: Plastic Sicarian,
Yeah, they misspelled it for some reason.
They misspelled it. Oh my god.
in the video.
Yeah, in
Yeah.
the announcement
Oh,
video.
that's awesome. The same intern who was like, you can return fire with a Scorpus Whirlwind must have spelled this.
Yeah.
I think they fixed it because I was just looking at it. I may be wrong, but I think they fixed it. But on Thursday when they released it, it was definitely.
Oh, it absolutely was.
Yeah. So yeah, we're finally getting a plastic Sakaran Venator. So maybe this is where the magical extra tracks come from that we've seen on the Sakaran or Kratos sprue.
Nah.
I don't think so.
The Kratos is way too big. It's like the
Was
size
it
of
the
a
Kratos
Spartan.
that had the extra tracks, or was it the Sakaran? I forget.
I thought it was the Sakaran who had the
Yeah, the
extra tracks
Sakaran.
on it, not the Kratos.
I think
So
the
maybe-
Kratos, if I remember when I built it, only had like 4 extra links, maybe. Not a lot.
Okay, so I'm mistaken then. So it was the Sakaran that Chris pointed out had a bunch of extra tracks on it. So maybe this is why we're getting it. Maybe they redesigned the hull. We need extra tracks for, but I mean it's neat. I'm not getting one because I've already got my 2 resins painted up. But
Same here.
We keep getting so many freaking tanks. I wish we would get some more infantry. You know, the jet bikes were nice; they were needed. Apart from
If
the
you can
rules
find
being
them.
trash. Yeah, if you can find them, and apart from the rules being trash, they were nice to have. So you know, maybe that's our Adepticon announcement is going to be a new box set with jump marine that we need to plug
Sensei.
up.
Mark IIs and Jump Marines. That would be.
Hello, James Workshop. My name is Duncan Kendall. I love playing Games Workshop games. I love playing Horus Heresy. I buy your stuff. I read your fiction. I look at your silly videos. I read your silly little magazine. I hate you. Please put out some infantry.
Yeah. I was watching the feed on the Facebook feed for Games Workshop when they announced it, and I felt really bad for the intern that was having to field and fix the Facebook feed when they announced it, because it was just an onslaught of people saying, can we get some infantry? Can we get some infantry? How about demon rolls or solar auxiliary rolls?
The fact that they even did the bait where they sat on the Cerberus so long, and it's just like, guys, we know this is coming. We know the Typhon's coming because they all use the plastic Spartan parts, and we've seen the sprue. You're not hiding this from us. Why are you waiting so long to show us some that we all see? As opposed to doing something genuinely exciting or surprising. Assault Marines as a kit, or a standalone despoiler box, or breachers.
Yes, please, standalone despoiler box. A pack of arms and chain swords. Something.
How about I'll be even simpler. How about just a close combat and general box that does despoilers, destroyers, and assault marine?
Make the Mark III. Make the Mark IV. Heck, make a Mark II. I don't care. Put them out.
You're asking for something unreasonable.
You're right.
Even Mark Vs. I'll go there.
Nope. Mark 6. We are getting Mark 6, but that's why I think
we probably are.
An assault marine kit that has the backpacks, so you can dual build it as despoilers if you choose, just by add or remove backpacks. I think that would go over reasonably well. And it's not like Mark 6 is a bad choice for jump packs. It really isn't. I don't know what we're gonna do for breachers when we get there, but if you're not able to field core choices elastic, you're really telling people, hey, by the way, yeah, these other things exist, but just like your balance suspicions confirm for you, yes, tactical marines are the way.
EW has a Mark III tactical box. They have a Mark IV tactical box out. It includes 20 dudes, and they've got, obviously, the Age of Darkness box set that has all the guys in Mark VI. What I would love to see is just like they did with the special weapons and the heavy weapons, put out a box of bolt pistol arms, chain sword arms, chain axe arms, and some power weapon types. I don't care. Cost it $30. I don't care. Just give me, say, 10 or 20 of each. I don't care. Just give me something so that I can sit there and not have to scavenge from generic sources that may exist on the internet that I don't want to talk about on this podcast.
Or you could be like me, printing everything.
eBay. I'll just pretend I'm talking about eBay.
eBay.
And I'm
Special
talking
weapon
about
box.
the Mark 7 Assault Marine kits that definitely never get sold.
The special weapon box got my friend back into the hobby. Like he literally said, that's what we were asking for all over in the 90s. They finally came out with it, and it's right there. And he's like, cool, now when do we get close combat weapons? And I was like, yeah, that's what we hoping for.
About
I
the
mean,
time
I
we get
can't tell you.
demons.
I can't tell you how many times I've taken plastic Mark III or plastic Mark IV and this hobby knife thing that I use and had to sit there and slice arms at the elbow or at the shoulder just so I could reposition it and then reposition it again just to take a chainsword or a chain axe or one of the various things from Forge World resin for various weapons. I'm just... Please make it easier for the generic hobbyist to do this. It's actually a point of contention pretty much with the entire community. Almost as much of a point of contention as the demon book that doesn't exist. Please fix
Cromlech
these
made-
problems. We
Cromlech
love the
made
game.
Bolt pistol and chainsaw holding hands. They don't have the weapons yet. So I just used the GW weapons and I used the extra chain swords that came off the Mark III body. I ordered a whole bunch of those extra arms when I was doing Assault Marines early on. There's no reason GW couldn't be doing this type of stuff. I mean, just because a third-party company beats you to the draw doesn't mean you can't make it better than they thought they could.
Yeah. I mean, Cromlech, Max Mini, Anvil Industries, a whole bunch of different 3D printer people on Etsy, Cults 3D, people eBaying weird things that may have nefarious sources in, like, Poland or Russia or Uzbekistan or something.
Supporting the CCP.
Yeah, the
Anything.
Eastern Europe is being propped up by third-party bit sellers. Come on, GW.
Let us give you our money. I mean, it's really not that hard. We obviously do it. We're in heresy. It's not like it's a cheap game.
There's a reason why we're all poor. No.
I mean, your target audience for this isn't the high school kid who's spending his weekend money on an Arcus or a Sakaran or a
Well,
Spartan.
Not at the rate that we keep seeing heresy prices get jacked up at.
Ooh. Yeah, you're not wrong there.
Especially not when we can't even meet primary vendor allocation.
Nope.
And that brings me to something else I'd like to make mention of, because apparently this is going to be Duncan griping for a few minutes. Why is the jet bike box so damn expensive?
That's pretty cheap.
Isn't it,
I thought it was
isn't it
60 bucks.
60 for 3?
Yeah, it's 60
Yeah.
for 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, $60 for 3.
Yeah.
And so I made a list for White Scars that I'm thinking about doing eventually, maybe one day. And that list alone cost something like $1,200.
Oh yeah.
Just
See, I can at least like put cards on the table. I didn't start Games Workshop games in 2009, but I have never seen bikes less than like $25. I think the cheapest.
Yeah,
that's
about.
There may have been a 3-bike kit back in 2009 for like $45 for 3 bikes, which would get your average down to 15. But that was
There were some apocalypse bikes and like kits that would come with like multiple bikes, or like the Dark Angel Ravenwing bike box was actually a pretty good deal too.
Yeah, but the Ravenwing box, when that came out, that was $50 or $60 for 3, and at least you could rationalize it slightly. Or
Even in the 90s, when tax squads were near $30 or $20 a piece, bikes were still 12.
Yep.
Yeah.
But if I'm sitting here making 6 squads of 9 jet bikes or more, this is a little bit ridiculous.
Well, like weren't the Forge World jet bikes when
Even worse.
Yeah, I thought they were like $78 a piece or something crazy.
They were.
Like that.
Yeah. And that's why I didn't do it.
Yeah, that's why a lot of people didn't do it.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't mind having a White Scars army. Lord knows I know how to paint white. It's just a thing that I thought a while back would be kind of fun to do, but not at that price.
Well, I will throw this out. We do have 3 legit Forge World jet bikes for the White Scars Toys for Tots army right now.
Woohoo! There we go.
So I'll be looking to add more or get the Burt going in the background. So
the next part that goes along with that, and I know this is probably something that is me circling back, but it's kind of hard to make close combat jet bikers when GW won't put out close combat arms. Again, this is still me griping about that because, I play close combat armies. World Eaters, Sons of Horus, Blood Angels. Please give me more chain swords, chain axes, and bolt pistols.
You know what I want?
I won't even gripe if they don't give me Mark II or Mark III or Mark IV. Just give me something.
Arms.
This is America. I have the right to bear arms.
Best I can do is still not even talk about moving the javelin to a plastic kit.
They're gonna do it. They already
Yeah.
have They already have the sponson sprue. It's coming.
I know they will, but it's like it's the fact that we're dragging our feet, failing to meet demand, seemingly, on kits like the jet bikes. And in the meantime, here's a Heresy Thursday with Demon Assassin. You have no idea when we'll put the full rules out, and we won't even talk about the concept. Here's a Heresy Thursday where we've put out the Sakaran Venator. Oh, you guys already knew that was coming because every other tank in the Heresy is in plastic, and tanks have never been worse in Heresy. Oh, that's a shame.
I can tell you what's going to come next.
Well, thankfully we already got the Dreadnought release by them saying we're doing away with full Legion Dreadnoughts. We're just going to sell cast torsos for them.
The next thing that none of us are asking for is they're going to do a plastic Anvilus.
Especially now.
Ooh.
Exactly. None of us want this.
You got me. Yeah, that would be the most tone deaf. Yeah.
I mean, none of us want the Anvilus. It's terrible right now. Let's have that, please. Thanks. We love you,
I want my
GW.
plastic Stormbird.
You'll get that about the same time we get a plastic Manta.
Jack, you just reset the oldest clock ever, which is the plastic Thunderhawk clock.
Oh, I know what I did.
Daggone, man.
And where are the our Legion specific Praetors for the Legions we don't have? So.
Oh no! You know what we may get, Duncan?
And the Legion specific Dreadnoughts. I feel bad for the Legions who, admittedly, we did get Contemptors for everybody, but like, what are we gonna do with the Leviathan kit? We have like 6 Legions who have Legion specific Leviathans, and what's gonna happen to everybody else? Are they gonna treat the Legion specific Leviathan the same way, and they're just gonna relegate that to a torso upgrade for the plastic kit?
Probably.
That's next Thursday's announcement.
That's next Thursday's announcement, probably.
Right, and after that, they're going to announce the Anvilus.
I was going to go on all plastic Marine super heavy tank, like a Fellblade.
I mean, you sure could, because they're just upgrades to the Baneblade kit, aren't they?
Exactly. Yeah, no, it is. Yes.
No, it's not. It's an entire...
I didn't say we wanted it. That's what we're going to get.
I'm having chest pains.
Good.
Oh, that hurts somewhere deep in my soul.
Yeah, the Anvilus and that would probably be and like least like why, but yeah.
Or a plastic heavy bolter rapier team.
I mean,
plastic rapier be sick.
We didn't really want the Typhon and the Cerberus, but we got those. I think the regular Legion super heavies are better than either of those now.
Those rapiers.
What was that?
Solar auction by 30.
Oh yeah, Solar Axe players would be like, I'll take every one you can. Yeah.
Yeah, but they would only have the heavy bolters, and they'll be allocated at 1 per store.
Probably, but it'll be a 3-pack that's like $65 or $70.
Yeah.
You say that. What are guard heavy weapon teams at right now?
Oh, they're probably about
just re-released the new ones.
Yeah, I don't even know if you. Let me.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Right, well,
I stopped playing 40K for a while.
Let's do the last thing. So, last thing that I saw was in the Sunday preview for available on the 1st of March on Warhammer Plus is the YouTube short Iron Within, which was actually a Heresy Iron Warriors versus Imperial Fist CG movie that came out. That was really good, and then it disappeared, and everyone had hoped he moved in with GW. It turns out that that's true, and so we'll finally be able to rewatch that again.
So, just looked up the guard, the heavy weapon teams, the lighter weight infantry mobile ones are 3 for $50, and the new heavy duty ones are 2 for $50.
Aren't rapiers like 1 for $55 now from Forge World, no matter who?
Yeah,
runs
I was
it?
gonna say
so it's going to be another.
That doesn't
jet
actually sound that bad.
Are they even in print at Forge World? Because most of the Solar Ox line I went to like special order from Forge World.
Anyway, as for Iron Within, I didn't realize that had been a YouTube short previously. I remember they had really been advertising it and pushing it, Lee. That they were like, oh, hey, this thing's coming out. But the way they made Iron Within look in their like trailer, in their advertisement, was that it was 40k Irons now instead of Heresy Era.
It's possible, but I could have sworn it was Heresy.
I remember watching that a long time ago at this point, and I never got Heresy vibes from it, except for the fact that the Iron Warriors themselves looked Heresy-ish. But I didn't see anything. I mean, there was definitely like chaos stuff. So if it is Heresy, it's late Heresy.
I wonder when we're going to see our first release from the guy who did Astartes, considering Astartes has been pulled proper from YouTube. The channel is still out there, but it just tells you, hey, by the way, Games Workshop owns this now. Go watch it on.
So they took Astartes and then someone said they cut something out. I never knew it enough to know like what few seconds might be missing.
They cut a couple things. I think some of the stuff they cut was non-canon emblems that they had never used.
Probably some blood or something.
Likely so.
It's on Warhammer Plus. I would like if they did more with him. I think he talked about he was hired by GW, was working with them. Because the guy that did the Hell's Reach, he got hired and he's been doing a lot. He did the Blood Angel one.
I really liked that one.
Red. Yeah, that was really good. And then he's doing a prequel now that's coming out.
I could dig that. I do have one thing I probably should mention as well, unfortunately.
Yeah, what's going on?
It's that kind of thing that I mentioned in our main chat group about how I got roped into doing an event in Kentucky.
Yeah, I heard you promptly roped Alex into that shenanigans as well. Not Alex who's been on the show, different Alex.
Alex volunteered, and I very, very much appreciated him doing so. But yes, I did. I will fully admit I roped him into that as well to help, because there is no chance anywhere that I will get all this done on my own without having significant amount of help from people, friends, etc. Because I have 1.5 tables maybe, and they're wanting me to contribute somewhere right around 15-ish, maybe more.
I've offered my paintbrush and stuff, and I'm gradually building up some more tables again too.
Yeah, and I'm sure he spoke for the fact that I've got at least one table of my own I can provide you. So
I believe that was mentioned. So I'll just go ahead and begin about it, I guess. The event is apparently called the Bourbon Brawl, and it's going to be hosted in Lexington, Kentucky. It's going to be the weekend of the June the 7th of 2024. So thankfully on that we have a fairly significant amount of time before we have to actually make any of this occur. So we have time. Beyond that, apparently it's going to be an Age of Sigmar forward event. There will be Age of Sigmar primarily. I think they're having like 60-something people for that. They've already formed the LLC. They've already put down a deposit and a contract on some type of a location. They are having some 40K, and they reached out to me and said, hey, would you be willing to do this? And I said, I would be willing to consider it. And then they started talking more about it, and I said, well, if you're going to throw it at someone who's going to want to do competitive stuff for it, I will happily jump in there and make certain that they don't have anything to do with this, because Heresy is not competitive. So yeah, I don't have any real information beyond the dates and that it's in Lexington, Kentucky yet, but that's the beginning of the end for me, I guess.
Well, here is to the fantastic hope that it goes better than the last GT that Alex and I tried to order. Who knows?
Yes.
Maybe I'm just the one who's jinxed in here. Maybe it's not Alex's fault.
I don't know. I definitely do not want this to be a GT. I don't want this to be a tournament. I want this to be a narrative. They're hosting the entire event for 3 days. They were asking me if I could do a 2-day Heresy thing, and I said maybe. So we'll see as time gets closer to then if this will actually be going on or not. So at this point, I'm kind of hoping it doesn't, just because I don't want to have to deal with the hassle of everything. But we'll see. Oh, and shout out to the Music City Heresy guys for also offering tables and attendance. So there we go.
On the subject of hosting events, Lucas, I don't mean to cut you off before you get the chance to talk about your hobby progress. How's that been going for you?
I'll just touch on it super quick. Basically, I've been painting scatter terrain. Wanted to spice up some of our tables a little bit. I finally finished actually inventorying everything that I inherited, and so going forward, we have enough stuff to run our Adepticon event as well as others locally. I wanted to say, Duncan, that I'll be happy to help you with terrain or whatever you need for your event, as long as we can work out the transportation. We're a little far away, but we can figure it out.
Much appreciated, my friend.
Yeah, we could do that with the stuff that me and John have ready to go. Like, you would need nothing. So anyways, I've been working on some like I said, some scatter terrain and some of our NPs that we're going to be using at Adepticon, which I'll get into the systems that we're going to be using later. I just kind of want to give an overview. And I've been working on some raffle items. We're going to be also doing a charity raffle at Adepticon benefiting David's fiance. We got some really cool stuff to give away. I've been finishing up one of the bigger items. I'm not ready to spill the beans quite yet, but I've been working on that a little. So, and then I'm going to be going to help John next week. And I've been also running the 3D printer basically constantly. So that's pretty much my hobby progress.
Well, that's fantastically exciting.
It's actually kind of nice because I had kind of been taking it easy, and this kind of like kick-started it again, where like I've been working on stuff, whether it be on the computer for putting together the Adepticon, my part of the Adepticon events, or whether it be actually putting brush to models. Actually got me kind of back into it a little bit, so that's really nice.
Extremely cool. Without putting you on the spot, tell us what you can about what you're really here for. Let's talk your event.
So, as of the time of recording, yesterday saw our third part of our narrative primer drop for our Adepticon events. My name's Lucas, and I'm running the Taking of Phyrix Adepticon events. So that's about, would you say? I think it's like 3/5 or a little under half, 2/5 of the Adepticon events happening. We have a 3-day linked narrative. So we have day 1, day 2, and day 3, which you could have signed up for individually. And we also have 2 days of the same Zone Mortalis mega battle. So basically that's going to be a 16-player, 8 on each side, 2,000 point mega battle in a Zone Mortalis. We have 18 feet of Zone Mortalis to do that with some really cool like special objectives that the players can hold. And when they hold those objectives, those are going to influence the main tables as well. Basically the Zone Mortalis is set on a space station called Station Upsilon, and that is above the planet Nazar within the Phyrix cluster, which is where we're fighting over. If you'd really like to know more, you can listen to our narrative primer, and we have it both in audio format as well as text format. I will link that in the show notes. So the 3-day narrative is 3,000 points, pretty standard stuff. We didn't really want to limit people on what they were able to bring, so we don't have any list restriction 3,000 point narrative. We'll see how that plays out. We'll see if that's for better or for worse. I felt like we did have LVO already, but I felt like Adepticon is really I guess LVO was pretty big, so it's the second big event of 2.0. So I really didn't want to insert a bunch of list restrictions before we really got like these big national events under our belt at least once, right? I didn't want to throw a bunch of restrictions on people. So you can bring Primarchs, you can bring named characters, you can bring whatever you want. Obviously, it's still a narrative event, and your force should be thematic. But like I said, there's no restrictions. So we are completely sold out. We had 176 total spots, and we ended up with 103 unique players. We sold out all of our tickets. We completely sold out our wait list. We're completely full up. That goes for all the Adepticon events, not just mine, but I thought it was really cool that we have over 100 unique players signed up for just my part of the. There's actually over. Exciting. I don't know if I'm spilling the beans here, but there's over 200 unique players signed up at Adepticon for Horus Heresy alone.
That doesn't include fantastic.
I believe the number is 203, but as we get closer, some people might drop or pick up or whatever. But we're in that 200 ballpark, so that'll be really, really to see. We've completely filled the ballroom. We after kind of the first, when we sold out all the tickets almost immediately. We don't have to go into the ticketing. We sold out all the tickets immediately, reopened the ticket thing, and we decided to just completely fill the ballroom. We had a lot of community people step up and help, volunteer to help out. John is actually really helping me on my part, so I would like to thank him. So anyways, basically the first two parts of our narrative primer basically go over setting up what has happened in the Phyrix story so far. So for those not aware, Phyrix is a campaign that has been going on since 2017. It was previously ran by our late friend David Koman, who ran Adepticon, some of the events at Adepticon last year. And when he passed away in December, I inherited it. Me and some of the other veteran Phyrixians, inherited it from him, and we decided that we were going to continue it in his honor, and that we were going to try to make it try to fulfill his dream even without him. So this is the first event that we're doing Phyrix under the new management, and we're really trying to hit it hard. We have, like I said, we have these in my opinion, excellent audio clips for the pre-existing narrative, as well as some new stuff that nobody's ever seen before. Those were narrated by a guy on YouTube named Baldermort's Guide to Warhammer. I don't know if anyone's familiar with him. He's apparently kind of a big deal, I guess. He has 200,000 subscribers. So I had never heard of him before. My buddy suggested we asked him to read this, and I was like, yeah, sure, we'll email him. Very, very nice guy. I wanted to point people to his channel if they have never heard of him.
He has helped me through many, many layovers when I'm just like, I don't want to, so I'm about to fall asleep. I don't want to start a new book or something like that. I just want to go through something. The dude has an amazing voice.
Yeah, he does.
And
He
he's-
could
And what was-
definitely read for Black Library, for sure. He's very good.
What was his name again?
It's called Baldermort's Guide to Warhammer. That would be his YouTube channel. Very cool, like I said, and a super nice guy too. He instantly was, when I told him what had happened and what we were doing, he was instantly on board and knocked out the narration for us very quickly. Really, really great dude. So I would highly recommend that you go check him out. Not only is his content very good, but he's also so yeah, we've got 3 parts ready to go. They set up the fight for, like I said, Nazar, which is the planet that we're going to be fighting on, as well as Station Upsilon, which is the Zone Mortalis, the space station. So basically, kind of our narrative experience, we have battle zones of Nazar. So there's going to be 5 different battle zones, and these battle zones are all going to have a bonus attached to them. I'm not ready to spill the beans on that yet, but that's kind of what we're looking at. So the faction which holds the majority of those tables in that battle zone, there's 5 tables in each battle zone for a total of 25 tables, is going to get the bonus for their entire faction. We're not going too crazy. Sometimes events can add some like really wild stuff for these bonuses. We're trying to keep it useful, but also something that is memorable. People can remember it during the game, and we don't want to just completely ruin something somebody has planned because of some bonus that some guy got that they don't even have anything with. So we try to keep them tasteful but fun. And then, like I said, Station Upsilon also has effectively battle zones as well that will affect both the second game for the station as well as the ground gate on Nazar. So that'll be really. The other thing, one last thing about the event, we have the points of interest system. So that's something that's completely new that we've added. They did run a points of interest system last year, but this one's a little bit revamped. Obviously, had to be revamped for 2.0. So the points of interest system, basically, there's going to be little icons on the table that say point of interest on them. They have a little exclamation mark on them, very clear what they are. And when your guys, either infantry or cavalry models, interact, they come within base contact with these little markers, they can choose to activate them if they like. This is a completely optional system. If adding something like this to your game is not something that sounds like fun to you, you don't have to use it. But your opponent, you could request your opponent doesn't use it, but they can if they. So basically, you step on the little point of interest, which could be, crates, or your guys have found some looking around ruins of Nazar. And this item can be one of 2 things. It can either be a piece of archaeotech. So I won't give too much away, but like one of the pieces of archaeotech is a nanite blaster, right? Which is a little pistol that shoots like replicants out of it, and it like messes up your opponent. But it's basically like a one-use weapon, and your guy carries that around. There's a little hierarchy. If you have an independent character attached, you must equip the archaeotech to that guy. And then a sergeant, you must equip it to that guy if you don't have a guy above him. And then the guy, if you don't have a character at all, you can equip it to any guy. And once you have no more models which are eligible to carry the Archaeotech in your unit, like no models with the infantry or cavalry type, you drop the Archaeotech. And enemy or friendly models can actually come and pick it up. So that once you die, the Archaeotech stays there. And it doesn't even get cleared between games. So the next guy who comes and plays on your table can come and pick it up. It's placed face down so they don't know what it is. And we have the Archaeotech printed on these little cards, very nicely done cards. That way you have everything that you need right there with you. You don't have to like be looking through some chart or some book or something. It's on this little card right there, easily referenced, right? Or the other option for your point of interest is you can have so there's many NPCs, but they're basically split into 4 categories. NPC, you can either have a loyalist NPC, a traitor NPC, a neutral NPC, or a hostile NPC. So let's say you're a loyalist. You're an Imperial Fist, right? You walk up to your little point of interest and you're like, yo, I want to NPC. Pull up the NPC card. There's a table set up like the EO table where you'll go and you'll get your NPC card. You'll have to check out the NPC and you'll get your little card and it'll say at the top what faction belongs. So if the faction at the top is loyalist, that NPC would join your army. But if the faction at the top is traitor, that NPC would actually join the opponent's army. Now, it's still your turn, so you can still kind of just blast them if you want to, but it kind of has some fun play there. Obviously, if the NPC is hostile, they're always hostile to the player that draws it, and if the NPC is neutral, they are always friendly. There are many more of the neutral imp than there are imp that you're likely to have to kill. And then if you have those NPCs still in your possession and you've kept them breathing mostly, you'll get extra points at the end of the game for that. They're kind of an objective. So those are basically the 2 biggest systems that we have that kind of separate what we're doing from just a regular like series of linked games. We really want to kind of try to push the narrative. We have, like I said, we have these audio format narratives, and we actually have a staff member who's going to be walking around. We have a remembrancer going to be walking around and chronicling all of the things that people are doing that are worth remembering. You know, when your sergeant, maybe this is a sore subject, but when your artificer sergeant makes those 15 saves or whatever, he's going to be there and he's going to be able to chronicle that, and that's going to go into the story of Nazar. So we're going to try to have a more player focused narrative rather than just what I say happens. It will actually be like what your guys are doing on the tabletop, especially revolving around the imp system. What they're doing is actually driving them. He also has a ton of prizes to give away to people. Cool stuff. Get cool.
Yeah, I'm glad to help. You know, not only with the tables that I'm working on, but also that the NPC horde finally gets to come out.
Yes, you've helped
Lucas
me immensely not have to paint tons of models. I'll spill the beans a little bit. Some of the NPC might actually be more than a single model. You might encounter a whole squad of men or a whole horde of men. So
I have a quick question. Whereabouts in the Heresy timeline is this actually set?
It's kind of ephemeral. I didn't really feel like it was important to super pin it down. But if I had to say, it would probably be in like mid-Heresy, Drive to Terra kind of style, Shadow War kind of era, right?
Okay. That was just something that popped into my head, and I kind of was wondering, so figured I'd ask.
There's no like super crazy demon things that we have planned for right now, so that kind of puts us squarely mid-Heresy. It's definitely, far after Isvan. The war's been raging some time. Although, like I said, we don't really have any restrictions on like dead characters or anything. Like you can bring Ferrus Manus or whatever if that's really what you want to do. Going forward, I think we are going to restrict named characters, but for this, I felt like it was important to play kind of the game as intended.
Well, and I can certainly laud that, not only on the basis that, like, we've collectively at different levels kind of talked about the value of different supplemental rules as to, like, where do you think they fall in the current meta? Do you have a need for them? Do you feel like there's value to them? And how a number of people have pointed out, man, the system isn't even a year old. So if you're going to add all these splat books and everything, what are you going to do when the system does? You've kind of gone straight to 11 and you got nowhere else to turn.
And that's my opinion as well. So that's kind of what I wanted to start. But then, of course, then I go and add all this other stuff on top of it. So maybe I'm just as bad as her.
But I think it's event specific and it helps the event itself feel special or unique, and it's kind of your fingerprint on it. And I do also wanna like push that forward. As we've had a number of people who are like, hey man, can you just ban Fury of the Ancients outright? I know that we've got a local who is real hard committing to play Fury of the Ancients, make it fair and fun. And so I'm on board with the idea of get characters out there, see the full range of what they're capable of, and if somehow in 200 people, if 5 people play, I don't know, let's say Fulgrim. If 5 people play Fulgrim, and everybody who plays against all 5 of those dudes is just like Fulgrim's awful and I wish I never had to play against him again, cool, maybe we can like disseminate that information among the community, and even if we don't have to ban it outright, at least people can be like, okay, if I'm taking Fulgrim, I need to dial way back and I need to be conscious of what I'm...
Right, maybe I'm not bringing Fulgrim and 3 Dreadnoughts and the Last Cannon Squad and the Rapier Battery, right? Like,
Yeah, that would be a bit over the top.
maybe I'm just bringing the guy that is that guy. But I actually do have one more thing about what you just said. We do have Highlander named characters. So we have a character claim post that's already been live for some weeks now. So you only see one Fulgrim, one player playing Fulgrim in each of the days.
I had figured you were doing that, but I hadn't heard it like hard confirmed, and I didn't want to put words in your mouth, so that's cool. I really like Highlander characters personally.
I don't know that it would have been a problem if we hadn't have done it, but it's kind of it's a little bit of a tradition for these events. They, the Graying Legion did it for a long time, and then
It is
they did it
the
last year. And
most common thing that I see in Heresy is either no named characters, Highlander fight for them, and the others previously were Custodes as allies only.
yeah, what I really wish I could do is have everyone who wanted to bring the characters all come to a little mini game before the event and for them, but that takes quite a bit of time.
I think, I can't swear this happened, I think it was Music City 2021. There ended up myself and one other Alpha Legion player there, and if I recall, he and I both had lists that had Alfarius and lists that didn't have Alfarius, and I think he and I got rounds to line up such that only one of us was fielding Alfarius at a time, but he was bouncing between 2 players, and that was a ton of fun.
I did only restrict unique characters with a unique type, so you could have 20 Exodus.
I don't think that having 20 Exodus would be a wise idea.
Well, I don't mean one player, but I mean like as many players could bring Exodus as they like, basically. It's the restriction is only for models with the unique, which
That's
he does
fair.
not have.
I am super interested. Oh, here's a news item that we missed, just to briefly double back on it. Did we bring up the demonic assassin last week?
Nope.
Mildly.
Yeah,
Mildly,
if we brought him up, it was in the context of we got some weapon profiles, but no mention of if, when, where, or what rules will be for him.
That model looks very ageist. I'm going to say it. I know some people were slaving over it. To me, it's very, and it's kind of GW's moved into this different way of sculpting demonic flesh that I'm not a big fan of. I mean, it's better than their smoke sculpting, which is absolutely abysmal, but I'm just not a fan.
I don't hate it. I can definitely respect the idea that we have strayed from the way that what was it, obliterators that used to exist in Chaos. We have strayed from the way those used to be, and we are now at this stage, which I definitely agree is some of a change in comprehensive stylistic direction as far as really trying to make models feel larger and more elaborate, especially for those HQ slot models. But I think part of why I brought it up was as much or more about wondering how Exodus is going to fit into a larger puzzle, especially with things like Mobius configuration, when you've got Exodus running around, when you have the potential for demonic assassins to pop up, and similarly, I suppose at a certain level, Katie's Nex, with the Imperial allies. Though I understand Katie's Nex is a little less of a Vindicare with a different name than what Exodus is.
What's the problem with having a bunch of assassins?
Oh,
I mean-
I'm not saying there's a problem to a bunch of them. I'm just trying to see how the puzzle's all gonna fit together.
Oh, okay. I thought you were like, I thought you had seen something where they all interacted with each other that I really. But I get what you're saying now with Mobius being able to bring the loyalists,
Yep.
and then they have an assassin, and then you have yeah, okay, that makes sense. I get what you're saying.
Yeah, and especially the FAQ that says, "Oh, if an assassin's included in your force, if you kill a character, you earn a victory point." And there's been some discussion about like, does that rule actually apply? Because none of the assassins seem to have that rule. Does the assassin have to kill them all? Just a lot of question marks there. To say nothing about I don't know if you guys have seen it. We had one particularly frustrating weekend where one guy got 3 to 5 games in, bringing a vigilator, and just picking out sergeants and pinning squads, sending them straight to ground. And that got very oppressive very quickly. And so if I'm concerned about a lot of assassins, it has more to do with what is the impact going to be on the game overall. Kyle, our guest last week, mentioned how he tends to run squads pretty cheap, pretty bare bones. But some of these lists really seem to depend or rely at a certain level on spending a certain number of points on your sergeant, especially if you've got like somebody who really wants to or needs to get into a challenge. Well, by the time you pony up for the artificer armor, to say nothing of then like the power sword or the power fist or legion specific war gear, or even just these apothecaries or tech marine that are 50 to 70 point models. If you've got a vigilator who takes out 3 non-independent characters, he's well and truly paid for his points several times.
Yeah,
and
you
again,
could really
I'm
play the.
Well,
I was gonna say you could play the
yeah.
denial game too if you know that there's an EO special mission that's like get into a challenge, and every time someone walks nearby somebody else, their sergeant just falls over 308 hole in his skull. Like, oh, I guess I'm not going to get that challenge this game.
And it's possible that I'm overblowing or exaggerating the issue, if for no other reason than it feels like it's feeding my confirmation bias, that it outside looking in, it feels like it's more challenging for players to bring lists that will intersect one another, and get the type of gameplay experience familiar with from last edition of Heresy, rather than to get 2 lists that don't intersect and somebody's just got a hard counter, even if just accidentally.
So I will say though, as someone who's looking at a Dawn of Revelations list, that it intrigues me because I want to just pick out that augury scanner guy and all the units so I can bring my stuff down and not worry about them. But do they only get independent characters, or can they get any unit the same precision strike stuff?
Sniper as a weapon rule says you apply that wound to any model of your choosing.
Right. You know how like when you're taking wounds normally, the controlling player selects the wound order,
So
and who takes it, it just flips the control to the opposite.
So like
all
the
it
Headhunters picking characters the same way.
Although it doesn't let you choose the order do the wound, FYI. It only lets like the attacking player select which wounds go to which target, but the controlling player still selects so they could like roll a bunch of artificer saves, then let you snipe their sergeant.
I'm
want to.
dubious on that because I'd have to double check. Is the wound pool still built based on weapon grouping?
I think that the reason that I just said what I said has to do with it just says, I believe the sniper says whoever, like it uses the word whoever, but that doesn't mean whenever. If that makes sense. We can pull it up later.
Yeah. That's something
Don't just take my word for it and show up at your next event and be like, "Yo, Lucas said that I could just snipe your sergeant or whatever."
Yeah, I think that's a great, at the very least, point of wisdom to impart, assuming nobody's like researching it while we're talking here, is the idea that do double check your assumptions on how wound pools work relative to last edition, because I suspect that has changed more than you might think.
Shots are allocated against a model or models of the attacking player's choice in the target unit, as long as it's in range and the line of sight of the fire, rather than the following normal rules for rune allocation. Note that snapshots can never be precision shot, and attacks with the blast or template weapons may never benefit from effect of their sniper or special rule.
So was that the
That's
rule
the
under
sniper rule. Yeah.
Yep, sniper.
Okay. So,
So-
can snapshots be snipers but not precision shots? Because it calls out
So I want to come back.
yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. You're good.
Are we done digging into the depths of the specific rule interactions? Because I want to jump back to something that Jacob mentioned and events and list building. Because the other Adepticon events that I'm involved in running, the tag team and attrition, we are running no named characters and named, not just unique. And the one part of that I always am hesitant about is exactly the point that Jacob was making here, in that people build their list around having certain characters with certain list building interactions put into them. And I would rather allow some of those list building interactions to a point, although some of them it gets really wishy-washy, because some of them can break games at smaller point limits. And so, it's kind of the thing where you're playing smaller points, you don't want it to cause too much of an issue, but at the same time, I'd almost rather allow people bring their lists. And so I always go back and forth on how good or bad of a thing that is with limiting named characters, because it does cause some of those interactions to change, and sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worse. But there are certainly named characters and list building interactions that at smaller point values especially can make a big difference in how armies interact with each other, for sure.
Yeah, I know that's something that's kind of mucked me personally before last edition. I used to run a lot of our Melistine at, because he, to me, did fundamentally alter list construction in a way that other warlords or HQ choice, and that definitely was challenging for me to enroll or enlist in events that didn't have that. But before we peel too far off the beaten path, I know I kind of got down this rabbit hole after talking about the demonic assassin and such, but that was off of Lucas's point about Highlander character selection, and I wanted to make sure that I circled us back to him to let him finish talking.
I think that was pretty much it. I had some questions about people asking me. I initially only allowed players to claim one character to prevent people from just claiming everything they could ever want to use. But then I had some people ask, and I will be allowing players to run more than one named character if they show up on the day and it hasn't been. I don't know how good that's going to be, but that's how we're going to do it.
No, yeah, I think that is the best that you can do as an EO in your position, is also to just be like, hey, if we do check-in at 9 o'clock with the intention that dice roll at 10, check-in will include checking off everybody who's on the Highlander list and then making sure to publicly state like what's still left out there if people want to scramble for 11th hour changes.
Right.
And big props to your point. And this may also be misremembering off of something somebody else brought. While I laud people who go to the length for list checks, especially at these larger events, and I get why some people say that that's necessary or have concerns it might be necessary. But huge shout to we trust the community to be adults and to figure it out and to not bring lists.
Not only rude, but legal. Right. I'm not checking anybody's. I mean, don't take that as an open invitation, but like I don't have we just honestly don't have the time or manpower to. So not only do we not really have the time or manpower to check them, but then we don't really have the time or manpower to hold you to what you said you were going to bring. So that's not something.
What you're kind of saying is checking yourself is on you. This is an honor system.
Yeah, if that's your goal, is to defraud somebody out of a couple points or whatever, then like
I'm playing the wrong game.
That's all I got. I'm not trying to discourage anybody, but I'm just saying like, yeah, that's kind of like not a cool.
I mean,
move.
I will seriously say I think you're playing the wrong game if that's your goal, right? You should be across playing MCP or 40K or something with real competitiveness in it.
Don't will those people into other games.
You should be playing Magic the Gathering, is what he's trying to say.
Honestly, if you want to defraud somebody an achievement or an accomplishment, please bring your own pencil to the golf course so that you can correct how many strokes you wrote down. If you want to defraud somebody out of an achievement, you defraud yourself. Leave the rest of us out of it. Thank you.
And so I do request that players who are participating bring a printed copy of their list, as well as enough copies to give their opponent one. And then if their opponent would like to double check their list, they're more than welcome.
I think that's probably the best way of doing it.
I don't think I've ever met someone who cared when I've given them a list handout before, been like, here you go. They're like, oh yeah, whatever. They basically just ball it up and throw it over your shoulder.
I'll usually give it a once over just in case it's like, oh, there's a unit here that I don't completely grok. Like, I don't understand what this is, how it works, and what it do.
Yeah, that's fair. Rather than like, oh, I think this is busted or whatever, it's like, what is this?
Yeah, or like, oh, I see you're using this. I've had a couple friends who've asked about using this. What do you think of them? Obviously, you'll get to form your own opinion during the game, but...
See, to me, that sounds exactly like what I've always done. It's like, oh, well, that's cool. Why'd you bring that? I've never actually seen someone play that.
So I've brought a narrative background to my army before and had people want to keep that and read the write-up, of that rather as opposed to lists and army construction.
And I would love people to do that if they wanted to have a narrative, either a little plaque or a little write-up or whatever. That is something that we really want to push. That is behavior that we really like to see. I'm not saying that I can give everyone that does so a prize, but there is a lot. We have a lot of unallocated prize support that is kind of for us to just give away to people who we thought did really cool stuff. So bring some really cool stuff, and you might get something cool out of it.
Very cool, very cool.
John?
I was just looking through the Sunday preview, Heresy Thursday, so we haven't covered those yet. So we got to talk about that. The Secure and Venator. But the Sunday preview shows that they're transporting Iron Within for GW, and I wonder if they're going to. We'll talk about that later. I just want to make sure that we cover the article shit. So back to Duncan.
So I don't know quite where this is going to pop in, but I'd actually like to ask Lucas and Dan both, why do you and why have you stepped up to actually run these events at Adepticon? I mean, I get that all of us love Heresy. I get that all of us are appreciative of you doing it, and I'm not saying anything negative, so please don't think that. I'm just wanting to have a little bit of an explanation so that people understand why the two of you, who are both known people in said community, have stepped up to actually do this.
You want to go first, Dan?
Sure, I'll try it, see how it does. Mine's simple. I had ran some other events at Adepticon. I was kind of used to it. 2020, sign up for Adepticon. I was in nothing. Everything was sold out. I was going to show up at 2020 Adepticon and because it's local, and try and get into games and spots that other people weren't making it for, because there weren't enough spots open. And I realized that there needed to be more Heresy events. There needed to be more open spots for people to run, and I'm local. I had some experience. I decided when Adepticon came back, I was going to do that because the community needed it, pure and simple. And then I enjoyed the heck out of it last year. I get to sit around. I get to talk to people walking by. I enjoy the hobby part of the game, social interaction, as much as I enjoy putting models on the table and playing the game. I do like that, but I got a ton of enjoyment out of doing it, and so I see myself continuing to help in that way, just because it needs to be done. It's local for me at Adepticon specifically, and I enjoyed it.
Cool. I dig that answer.
So I had a couple different reasons. First and foremost is to get bit. That's pretty obvious. Second would be that it's kind of a be the change you wish to see in the world kind of thing, right? It's like if you feel like I got kind of signed up into doing it locally first, and I wanted to, like, I started playing, and then I started coming to events, and then I started being like, hey, well, what do you guys need? What can we do to help? What can we do to make this better? Because this is a community that I really enjoy being a part of, and obviously it growing only helps everyone, help you, help me kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
But to Adepticon specifically, me and John had kind of thought about helping before, especially like, you had the original kind of when I got in, it was the Graying Legion was running Horus Heresy.
Yeah.
So they were kind of on their way to retire to Nova, whereas they didn't want to run 2 big cons every year, and I completely understand why. And they had done a great job, and so they had some shoes to fill. And then you had Ryan Kimmel and his events kind of come. I think they ran concurrently one year, but then come after. And then Ryan Kimmel was kind of like, I can't keep doing this every year. Completely understandable. It is at great personal expense to transport all this stuff across state lines, right?
Well, obviously, yeah.
And then you had David step up in that next year in the 20. It was going to be the 2020 slot, right? Am I getting the dates right? The one that was canceled, and then the 21 was canceled, and then he finally did do it in 2022.
Yeah.
And he would have done it. He was signed up to do it again this year, but that didn't happen. So I kind of like I said, me and some of the other guys inherited it, and we continue it in his honor. And that, for me personally, at this moment, that's my biggest driving factor for running events at Adepticon and running events in the Phyrix narrative, is the memory of like our friend that ran them who couldn't still be. So that's what really motivates me right now.
I dig it. I've definitely got no complaints about it. I just figured it'd be something cool to say why you all want to run these events, what motivation you had. And I thought it'd be something kind of different than most people don't ask.
Right. And especially since like, you're kind of thinking about maybe running your own event.
Yeah.
Is like, well, why? Why would you want to do something dumb like that?
I'm just not going to comment on my.
I understand, and it is. I'm not gonna lie, it is stressful, and the heresy community overall is very good about giving kind of thanks to its organizers. It's always a kind word, and thank you for putting this on. And a lot of times, they get a round of applause at the end of the event, and maybe sometimes people, if there's like merchandise available, people buy merchandise that they wouldn't normally buy, but they want to be able to help the event organizer offset the cost. That the heresy community is, from my experience, very good about doing things like that. So it's not as thankless as I'm sure some other game systems are, which is always nice.
I'll agree there. I've actually done chip-ins like that before myself. So
yeah. So speaking of, I'm gonna have merch for sale. I'm gonna have merch for sale.
What kind of merch for sale?
I can't tell you yet completely, but we got some stuff. And not ready to spill the beans. We're keeping a lot of it under wraps.
That's fair. That's fair.
I will say one of the cool things they had last year was the campaign specific decals.
That is a very cool thing. Maybe we'll have those.
I managed to weasel myself a set, even though I wasn't playing any. I was happy for that. Didn't take much weaseling. David was a great guy, so he gave them to me.
Yeah, that's the thing, is he would definitely have given you the shirt off of his back if he thought that it would make your experience at an event better. That was one of the coolest things about David, is that David really didn't play Horus Heresy. I have seen David play one single game of Horus Heresy in the 5 years that I've known the man, and he only ran events. That's really all he did. Painted terrain, ran events. He had a passion for some certain like models and factions in the Horus Heresy, but his passion was the event running. And I'm definitely, now that I'm getting more into it, I've ran some events before, but now that I'm getting more into it, I'm definitely seeing like how this can be rewarding as well, rather than just getting to play cool games with your friends.
I can see that. And personally, on a player level, I want to say thank you for stepping up and doing this. Thank you to John for helping you, and thank you to whoever else helps you run this. Additionally, Dan, thank you for doing the ones you're doing, and I will tell Zach the same thing.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
We really do have a great crew of guys doing the Adepticon event organizing. Zach is kind of the organizer of the organizers, I guess, and he's done a great job so far. It wouldn't be possible without him. So he's been on the show a couple times. If people aren't familiar with who we're talking about Zach Paget. So everybody's been great so far. Anytime anybody needs something, you can just ask, and everybody's been super helpful. So I don't have any complaints.
Cool.
Can't
That was
believe-
literally all I wanted to know.
Also, it's a really good opportunity for everyone who, whenever you're like, oh, that's dumb, whenever you go to an event, be like, I don't like that. Just don't do it. Your event will be perfect.
Yeah, I kind of like the backhand to that too, which is you think you can run a better event? Yeah, all right. Game on next
Do it.
year.
Yeah, do it.
Yeah. Now that being said, generally Harris experience is significantly more receptive than some of these four.
Absolutely. And usually when somebody like, say you go to an event and you think that they've made a mistake in how they've run things, usually they already know that. And they're like, oh, well, that's how we did it. So, oh, well.
Boat's already in the water.
Yeah, exactly. They're not like running it poorly on purpose, usually.
Yeah, everyone, after having written some missions before for certain things, I definitely had good intentions and apparently lousy execution. So I understand that feeling all, unfortunately, too well.
Missions are tough to balance. Custom missions are very tough to balance.
But it comes with experience.
That's
yeah,
true.
and from my perspective, I'll go into a little bit on mission design. We're doing all custom missions. Well, we're doing all no book missions. The missions might be stolen from somewhere else, but they won't be from the book. So that has to do with if you do them, you have to basically do them. They all have to follow a similar format for them to be successful. Like I feel that's how I feel. Like you can't have some missions that follow like I guess we have attacker, defender, and regulars, but am I making any sense or am I rambling on about it?
Nope, you're making sense.
You're making sense.
They all have to follow like a similar kind of mission design philosophy for it to really work well, in my opinion. So like when I actually wrote the missions that David used last year, and we got some good feedback on them. But one of the problems I see sometimes, one of the pitfalls that I see event organizers that write custom missions get into, is they like almost want to have too much stuff going on. Like if you have missions with objectives, have every objective effectively behave in the same way throughout your entire event, right? You must be within the same distance of the objective to control it on every single table. The objectives can do different stuff, and you can have ones, everybody loves the mission where it's like, oh, you got to turn on the objective, and then you keep getting the points while it's turned on, but the enemy can come and turn it off. But the design philosophy of like I said, how far away from the objective you have to be, what can control the objective, this, that, and the other, all needs to be very consistent, in my opinion.
Go ahead.
Yeah, that way you don't get confused on like, well, who can do what, 2 inches, 3 inches, like keep it the same. It doesn't take any work to keep it all the same.
I really want to double down on your point in two ways. The first is absolutely keep it simple, stupid. The fewer moving parts you have, or the fewer unique moving parts you have, the more they will stand out. So whether you say that's a planetary condition, or if you do just a one-off mission in your entire like 5-round event, and you're like, surprise, in this one the objectives, whether you follow like old school relic rules or whatever, the less moving parts you have, the more people will remember them, will interact with them, and will have that be an integral part of whatever that actual mission is. And similarly, do not be afraid to have your mission design be research and duplicate. If you see something that another game is doing and you think that's cool, chances are other people will think that's cool. It's just a question of how much playtesting and refinement you have to go through to port that into Harris. My biggest hang-up with that was typically when I would end up finding a mission that I really liked from another game. Most other games are not doing what Heresy and Games Workshop Systems kind of collectively are still doing, which is I take my entire turn with my entire army in phases. Most other games have either like alternating activations or have like an action economy during individual activations that you want to try to compromise or gnaw at with objective interactions. That's been difficult for me to port historically, but when you put the time in, again, it can be super.
Yeah, I agree that like Heresy is still and this isn't a derisive thing to say about it, but it's still a little old when it
Yeah,
comes to
there's
stuff like that.
one mission I want to bring back that I had back when I was running events at my hobby shop. Is that the exploding relic?
Don't give it away. We're gonna use it.
Okay,
Just
okay,
kidding.
because it was.
I will.
Sorry,
I will
Jacob.
say that the keep it simple, stupid is important because I'm pretty sure there's at least one person in this chat with me that I've played a game against where we got to the end and we're like, supposed to do this because just the game itself took too much away from remembering the special mission rules. I would hazard a guess that most everyone who's played at Heresy events has done that and get to the end of at least one game event where you forgot some special mission rule, just didn't do it, and you're like, oh well.
Yeah, we had a buddy who tried to do an early version of what 40K would probably now recognize as like the ITC packet mission. We had a friend who did that, and it was probably like 2010 or so. And he did not do a particularly robust job of getting it out there early and explaining it. And so a lot of people just ended up overwhelmed and just decided to just play the game and then figure out how to score things into the game. Now, admittedly, by the end of 3 rounds, people were like, man, if you would have just explained this to us, this day could have gone a whole lot better, instead of a lot of people just playing a game and then at the end of it realizing that's what the packet rewarded is to play the game. And I think that definitely fed forward to what Ryan did and what we were able to point him to. So Ryan famously put a unique mission at every table, and there was at least one event that he did where he set the table up, got somebody to hold the camera, demonstrated how the mission worked, and then posted it to YouTube. And in addition to having just like the typed rules for how the game was supposed to work at the table,
QR code.
Yep, the flip side was a QR code. And the number of people who I saw who like did the John sort of strategy of, oh, if it takes me more than 5 minutes to understand what that unit does, I'll just kill it first and not worry about it. The number of people who were like, there's like 15 lines here, I don't want to read all that, whipped their phone out, watched the video, and in 5 minutes or less, Ryan was just like, here's how I expect this mission to play out. And they were just like, got it, done, ready to go. Really impressive.
I remember that.
That's a good idea.
Yep.
It just takes 5 ever.
Oh, yeah. But conversely,
But it's a good idea. Like,
if you are doing a 3 to 5 round tournament, if everyone is playing the same mission in a given round, it does take a lot less involvement than the shoot a 5-minute video for each table.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't really consider that. That's a good point. That like I'm doing 25 individual because I have 25 tables. And so the thought process, each player will only play at each table once. So there's no need to have a bunch of different tables, a bunch of different missions that nobody's ever going to see.
Yeah.
But yeah, that would be quite the task to have 25 videos, but having 5 is really not that big, not that bad. It's a good idea.
And some of it obviously comes down to how much heads up you have. A month heads up, probably too short to do this. But if you made it like the first thing you wanted to do after the new year, if you got through Adepticon and said, I'll spend my next 9 months with my Mournival play testing different mission ideas, then January 1st, you're like, okay, what are our best missions and how do we nail them down into a video form that's presentable and digestible. But a lot of that's compartmentalism of organization.
That's a good idea. I may steal it.
Well, you're not stealing it from me. You're kind of stealing it from Great Granddad, and I don't think he's going to be too upset about it. And in fact, I'd be pretty proud to see that somebody was picking up some of the lessons.
I'm really glad that we can talk about the like mission design and philosophy without like having to be, we don't have to be hyper competitive to be concerned about the mission in the game. That's half of the game. Half of it is bring the army you brought, and the other half is the mission.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that we can actually talk about it without being like, well, it doesn't matter if you're not competitive. Well, it still matters.
Yeah. You still want something out there. And I think it may have also been was it Alex who talked about it in the context of the LVO, where he was saying, unsurprisingly, you may need to include infantry in your forces to interact with a reasonable mission design. I think that's important is to at least track or to caution players, hey, if your army list includes 0 infantry choices, it may be difficult for you to interact with conventional mission design. I'm not going to try to make these missions deliberately obtuse or inaccessible to you, but I do need you to be aware of the give and take that you're engaging in by disavowing.
Precisely. That's an incredibly good point. That's what I have in my overview, which is like not really an event packet, but basically like a little bit more information than what you get when you sign up at the event. I say that specifically. I said many of the missions we are running will be objective based and will require line units to score them. It's that simple. I guess mine doesn't say it has to be infantry.
What's this requirement? Line? I mean, I've never heard of that.
Line? I barely know her.
I don't understand your requirements, and I won't respond to them.
Are you trying to say something like bring infantry and bring tactical marines and guys who actually score so you can play the actual game the way that your opponent may be playing it? How dare you, sir? That sounds
have to be tactical marine.
Terrible.
I never said that.
but you get what I mean. I mean, you're there to play the game.
Yeah.
Play the actual game, not just play, oh, I'm going to sit over here and do nothing to interact with you in a positive manner to where you can enjoy the game just as much as I am.
Yeah,
That's always been my complaint.
It's important to have that line distinction versus specifically infantry. I mean, and Lucas probably benefits from the fact that I'm a crazy nut job when it comes to building lists where I'm like, I'm going to build all tanks this year, and then I'm going to build all jet bikes, and then I'm going to build all dreadnoughts. He gets an idea of list of
shenanigans.
Mission building with a bit of a obtuse.
And I built my own fair share.
Oh yeah,
I built my own fair share of shenanigans as well. So yeah, absolutely. Yep. But it is helpful that I do play in a pretty diverse meta. At risk of sounding.
No, you're good. I want to put something out there for our listeners as we talk mission design, and as Lucas brings up, like, you can have serious conversations about mission design that don't necessarily have to making missions that are the most competitively balanced possible. If you have a mission you want to pitch to your EO, figure out some open-minded buddies who can playtest that mission with you and who can give you serious criticism about it. Put it through even just 1 or 2 playtests, put some revisions on it, pass it to them, and again, please be open to criticism. And likewise, if your EO is like, hey man, do you got time this weekend? I've got a weird mission that I want to try out before I just put it in the mission document. Be open-minded, be critical, but be fair. So if something does not work, the time to talk about it is as you're playtesting it. It's not when the event shows up and you're like, yeah, I didn't really think the mission worked, but he put it in the packet anyway. That's not the time to talk about it. That's not the right way to talk about it.
Yeah.
One thing I would like to actually mention here about missions, having played missions at events for more than a decade and a half at this point. One point I always want to make mention is if the mission doesn't allow both sides, both players, to be able to play the game, and it just kind of cripples one side because of how things react no matter what. Like an all-tank army cannot do this, or an all-infantry army cannot do that. That isn't a fun mission for people to play because you don't know what your players are going to have. You don't know the list the players are going to bring. And even if you do, you don't want to design something that's going to be unfun for people because that just leaves them going, man, I had a great time at this event except for this. That's always a negative point.
I've got a great note to carry forward from this year's Michigan GT.
Have at it, sir.
If you are doing round-specific missions where everybody in a given round is playing the same mission, or you can all obviously take a little bit of this to heart with table-specific missions. If you know that in the round coming up, the attacker is going to have to move their army across the table from their deployment zone to the enemy deployment zone, possibly up to and including exiting the table through the enemy's deployment zone, please tip your War Masters off about that objective before you start doing pairing. Because if every other player on a given faction is on the attack, somebody may go, man, I've got 60,000 guardsmen. How am I ever going to move that in a 2.5 hour table round and get anything off the other side of the table effectively? Or conversely, someone may be able to say, hey, my army is like all jet bikes, and don't get me wrong, I can probably win this mission, but I'll probably win this very quickly. Giving your players the ability to self-govern and to know what they're getting into for a given mission can boost player satisfaction immensely.
I mean, that's why we all play the game, right? I mean, we're not sitting here to play just to have a bad time. We're not sitting here to play just to get drunk and hang out with our friends, although that is a huge, huge part for it.
That's a huge part.
Yeah. We're here to play the game for the game itself as well. And if your mission prevents someone from playing the game or makes it unfun, you might want to rethink how that mission works.
We don't just sit around and hate on everything.
Well, I mean,
we do, but we're
Some of
trying
us
very
do.
hard to do a different thing right now.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
what I'm saying. The toxic fandom is dumb. I mean, we're so quote-unquote toxic is because we care. And the reason we care so much is because we work on this. Put a lot of time into that's why we get... Sorry.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I mean,
Um,
we all
what I was gonna
spend
say,
money on
though, is
heresy.
that-
Kind of the point.
Right. What you were saying, Duncan, where like some of these missions may be not conducive to every list build.
No,
when
I
write
get
the
that
mission,
part. I get that part.
I tried to make it where even like offshoot weird lists can still participate, but sometimes it can be very difficult. I've given up on that mission, the one where you got to drive off the opponent's table edge. Given up on it. Can't be done. It's not fun. You either team is either it's almost impossible or it's almost a guarantee. Those are your options, and I don't think it's fun.
I
So
don't
I've given up on
disagree,
it.
because if you have two players who should be evenly matched in the game, it turns out the player who has better close combat prowess as you go to like scrap in the middle of the table, that player's probably going to come out on top of it.
I'm going to actually use that exact mission as an example of having attended an event that may be called Adepticon years ago. I was playing in an event where the mission for the opponent was to get across, for both people, was to get across the table and get off your opponent's table edge. And I played my Sons of Horus the first year I had them done. And that's the first year I met a guy named Cody, who you all know. And Cody had drop pod Blood Angels. And he dropped right on the 8th table edge with Day of Revelation. And he walked off the table edge round 1.
Yep.
I mean, the few bits that didn't, yeah, we had a game with that stuff, but it was kind of pointless. It was still a fun game. I still got to hang out with Cody and make a new friend, and I enjoyed that part. But it just seems that too many people don't take things like that into consideration when designing missions for an event. Now, obviously, no one can sit there and say, I have a mission that will work for everything, because somebody somewhere is going to create that 1 in a million list that's like 17.5 predators, and they won't be able to do anything because all they have is buku amount of predators and a Sakaran, and they have no infantry, so they can't actually hold anything. Someone's going to do that.
3 Sakarans, thank you.
Yeah, okay, so they'll have 3 Sakarans, 2 of which are Arqua, and 1 of which is a plasma predator or a plasma Arcus.
And if
or
you're
a
a Dark Angel player, you use the Kratos.
Yeah, but it makes sense. You're going to see people doing weird things like that, but you can't plan for the outliers. You've got to plan kind of a general fun mission for both people to play. And if people go out of their way to not have fun with it because they wanted to be a unique and special snowflake, well, that's on them.
You can only anticipate and plan for so much, especially when you have 100. What'd you say, Lucas and Dan? Was it 203 unique Adepticon players or whatever? So and there's 100 in Lucas's tournament group or whatever that he's running. So you can only plan for so much.
Yep.
If somebody's going to find a way to break it, is what I'm getting at. If you give I guarantee you, there's going to be someone that finds a way to break
something
whatever
about
you're doing.
monkeys and typewriters.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. That's kind of what I'm getting at. Especially if you've got 100 people, the odds are is you're going to have that one special. So
I promise it won't be me.
And it is what it is.
you can only do so much as a TO.
Cool. The last thing that I really wanted to say about Adepticon, actually, I'm sorry, two more things. One thing about Adepticon and one thing about Phyrix. Adepticon, if you did not get into the ticket thing where you don't have a ticket for an event, show up at the start of the event if you want to play in it. I personally am planning on running a very tight ship. If you're not at my desk signed in within 15 minutes of the event starting, you're out. I'm sorry, I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but it has to be that way. We have a tight schedule, so that is what it is. So if you're there at 9:15 waiting in line, we'll have a line for people who are waiting for drops. There will be drops every day, I guarantee. So if you haven't gotten into the events, if they sound really cool and you haven't gotten into them, be there at 9 o'clock. And I know a lot of people get lucky that way. I know people who have literally played an entire Adepticon that way.
I think our next show might have to be the Ultimate Con survival guide.
Yeah.
It's a good one.
It's not a bad idea at all.
Yeah, teach people how to pack bags, take care of themselves, make
Brush
their
your
events on
teeth
time.
and wash your crotch.
Deodorant, people.
Don't give away all the surprises. We gotta
Okay.
save content.
Okay.
And then Lucas, you had another point.
I'm sorry, just one last thing about Phyrix is we have our own Discord. It's also going to be linked. I'm going to send a mega link in the show notes that basically has everything that you could ever want to know about Phyrix, as well as our sponsors if you want to check them out. Keep your eyes open. This isn't the last Phyrix event. We already have another being planned. I can't really speak to them quite yet. I don't have the venues 100% in my hands, but we're gonna do a Kansas City and we're gonna do a Dallas later this year.
Yeah.
So
Who's your biggest
can't make-
sponsor? We can shout him here by name.
I gotta pick one.
No, go ahead and pick two.
Yeah, pick two.
Okay.
Pick two if you have to.
Our biggest sponsor would have to be Death Ray Designs. They're who give us our Mega ZN. They're who made that possible. They're going to be lasering some prize support for us, as well as the points of interest tokens. So that's all critical stuff that the game could not be played without. And then our second biggest sponsor is Little Legends Studios, I think.
Nice.
They've pledged quite a bit to some painting awards, and Miles will be down there himself. I'm trying to talk him into judging, but we'll see.
He's pretty packed class wise.
I know he is. I know. It's definitely not because he doesn't want to.
Right. No,
It'll be
it's
because
not.
he can't.
Yeah. It's so busy teaching.
And Miles is a stand-up guy.
Which I
Yeah,
did
Miles is
not
a
get.
great dude.
Yep.
And giving us quite a bit of support. He was, when I send out my support emails, he was the first one to respond with, "I don't know what you're asking for, but yes, let's do it." So, and he's like I said, really stand-up guy. And then, like I said earlier, the Baldermort's Guide to Warhammer sponsored us in the way that he's done a lot of effectively free work for us. So go ahead and check out his YouTube, and we'll try to support each other. Like I said, when either of us grows, we all grow. So,
Already subscribed.
Same here.
yeah, those are our biggest sponsors, but we do have quite a few others. They're all on the we have a link tree set up. They're all on the link.
Excellent. Well, Lucas, thank you so much for joining us this episode to talk up Adepticon. It's been awesome to hear from you. Sounds like you got a killer event planned.
Well, thank you very much for having me on.
Yeah. Thank you again, Lucas.
Our
Agreed.
pleasure. And once again, thank you all listeners for joining us. I've been Jacob, and this episode I've been joined by
Dan.
Duncan.
Jack.
John.
And Jamie.
And Lucas.
And Lucas.
and we're glad to have had you with us. Remember, stay accountable to your hobby and your buddies. We'll see you next time.